I just don't understand why you're here, Mom. I stood at my door, arms crossed, glaring at her. I hadn't seen her in 5 years, and now she had the audacity to show up unannounced. My mother's lips trembled, but she stood firm, clutching her purse with a white-knuckled grip. "Jeremy, we need to talk," she said, her voice soft but pleading. "Please, it's about Brandon." "Brandon?" I scoffed, feeling the familiar burn of resentment rising in my chest. "The same Brandon who betrayed me? The same Brandon who, with your blessing, took everything from me?" Her face fell. "Jeremy, it's not that simple." "Oh, it's very simple," I snapped, cutting her off. "You chose him. All of you did. He was your golden child, and I was just the leftover, disposable. Don't stand here and pretend like you care now. Your brother is in a coma," she said abruptly, her voice trembling. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. For a second, I thought I hadn't heard her right. "What?" "He had a car accident 3 months ago," she continued, her eyes welling up with tears. "He's been in a coma ever since." I stood frozen, my thoughts racing. A part of me wanted to feel sorry for him, but the bitterness that had festered inside me for 5 long years fought to stay alive. Brandon. The man who ruined my life. The man who took away the one person I had truly loved, Anna. "And why?" I asked, my voice icy. "Does that have anything to do with me?" My mother's expression shifted to one of desperation. "It's not just about Brandon, Jeremy. It's about his child. Your niece. She needs you." I blinked. "His child?" My mother nodded, wiping away a tear. "Yes, Jeremy. His daughter, Lily. She's 4 years old now. She's been asking about her father, and with Brandon in the hospital, she needs someone. She needs you." I felt a bitter laugh escape my throat. "Me? After you all abandoned me? After Brandon got my fiancée pregnant and ruined my life, you think I'm going to swoop in and play father to his child? Are you insane? She's your blood, Jeremy," she pleaded. "Please, I'm begging you. Brandon he can't do anything for her right now. We don't know if he'll ever wake up. Lily's just a little girl, and she's already lost so much. She doesn't have anyone else." I shook my head, incredulous. "You have got to be kidding me, Mom. You expect me to forget everything that happened? Do you remember what you said to me the last time we spoke? You told me to stop being selfish, that family was more important than my pride. Do you remember that?" "I was wrong," she whispered. "I was wrong, Jeremy. But I can't change the past. I can only ask for your forgiveness now, for Lily's sake. She didn't ask for any of this." My hands trembled as I clenched them into fists. "Do you have any idea what it was like for me? Finding out that my own brother had gotten Anna pregnant? And then being told to just accept it? That I should be the bigger person? You threw me out like I was nothing." Tears streamed down her cheeks now, but I felt no sympathy. "I know, Jeremy. I know we hurt you. But please, don't make Lily suffer for our mistakes. She's not my responsibility," I said coldly. "She's Brandon's child, not mine. And if he can't take care of her, that's on him. She has no one else." My mother cried, stepping forward. "I can't raise a child on my own, and Anna, she's not stable. She hasn't been since Brandon's accident. Please, Jeremy, you're the only one who can help." I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions swirling inside me. Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face, to tell her to never come back. But another part, a small, buried part, felt a twinge of guilt. It wasn't Lily's fault that her father was a liar and a cheat. She was just a little girl, caught in the middle of a mess that wasn't hers to clean up. "How is Anna?" I asked finally, the words escaping before I could stop them. My mother wiped her eyes and sniffed. "She's not well. After the accident, she spiraled. Depression, anxiety, she's been in and out of therapy. But nothing seems to be helping. Of course. It always came back to Anna. The woman I had loved more than anything, only to have her ripped away by my own flesh and blood. Why should I help any of you?" I asked, my voice low but steady. "What do I owe any of you?" "You don't owe us anything," my mother whispered. "But Lily needs you, Jeremy. You're her uncle. She doesn't know what happened between you and Brandon, but she deserves a family. She deserves someone who will care about her. I stood there in silence, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to tell her to leave and never come back. But another part of me couldn't ignore the pleading in her eyes, the desperation that spoke of a broken family and a little girl caught in the crossfire. I need time to think, I said finally, my voice hoarse. I can't just jump into this. Of course, my mother said quickly, her voice trembling with relief. Take all the time you need. I just hope you'll consider it. I nodded, though I wasn't sure what I was agreeing to. As my mother turned and walked away, I closed the door, leaning against it as the weight of everything settled on my shoulders. Brandon was in a coma. Anna was a wreck. And now there was a child who had no idea of the betrayal that had shattered my life. Could I really step up for her? Or was this just another attempt by my family to manipulate me? The answer, I knew, wouldn't come easily. I sat on my couch, staring blankly at the wall as my mother's words echoed in my mind. Lily. Brandon's child. My niece. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, and the more time passed, the heavier the weight on my chest grew. I could barely process the idea of seeing Anna again, let alone taking care of her child. Yet, something gnawed at me, the thought of Lily, an innocent girl, caught in this mess. Could I really turn my back on her, too? My phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was a text from an unknown number. Anna, I heard you spoke to your mom. Can we talk? Please? I know you don't owe me anything, but it's about Lily. I stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity before typing back, almost on autopilot. Jeremy, where? Within minutes, she replied. Anna, the park near your place. Tomorrow, 10 a.m.? The next day, I arrived at the park earlier than expected, my nerves rattling. I hadn't seen Anna in 5 years, not since that horrible night when everything came crashing down. She was the last person I ever expected to face again, but here I was, waiting for her like no time had passed. I scanned the park, my eyes falling on her almost immediately. She sat on a bench, looking down at her phone, oblivious to my presence. I barely recognized her. The vibrant woman I had once loved was gone, replaced by someone frail, someone weighed down by grief and regret. Jeremy. Her voice was shaky when she finally looked up and saw me standing there. She stood slowly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, clearly unsure of how to approach me. Thank you for coming. I nodded, unsure of what to say. 1,000 words churned in my chest, but none seemed right. The air between us was heavy with unspoken memories. I don't even know where to start, Anna stammered, her eyes avoiding mine. How about the truth? I said coldly, crossing my arms. You didn't think I deserved that back then, but maybe now, you can finally give it to me. She flinched at the edge in my voice, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. She and Brandon had ruined my life, and the least she could do was acknowledge it. I made a terrible mistake, Anna said softly, her voice trembling. I've regretted it every single day since it happened. I scoffed. A mistake? You call betraying me with my own brother a mistake? Tears filled her eyes as she shook her head. You're right. It was more than that. It was selfish, and it destroyed everything. But it was never about not loving you. I did love you, Jeremy. Could have fooled me, I muttered, bitterness lacing my words. She wiped her eyes, struggling to keep herself composed. I don't expect you to forgive me. I know I don't deserve that. But I'm not here for me. I'm here for Lily. Why now? I asked, shaking my head. Why didn't you reach out when she was born? Why wait until everything's falling apart to come crawling back? Because I was ashamed, Anna cried, her voice breaking. I didn't want you to see what I'd become. I thought if I stayed away, you could move on. But now, I don't have a choice. I'm not well, Jeremy. I've been trying to be strong for Lily, but I'm losing myself. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was still seething with anger, but another part of me, one I hated to admit existed, felt a twinge of sympathy for her. She looked broken, hollowed out by guilt and despair. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. But Brandon, he's not here anymore. I can't do this alone. I sat down on the bench beside her, staring out at the playground where a few children were playing, their laughter a stark contrast to the heaviness between us. "What do you expect me to do?" I asked after a long pause. Anna wiped her eyes again, regaining a bit of composure. "I don't expect anything. But Lily, she's your niece. She deserves to have someone who can be there for her. I'm not asking you to be her father, just her uncle. She needs stability, and I don't have that anymore." Her words hung in the air, and I couldn't help but feel the weight of them. I had spent so long avoiding everything tied to Brandon and Anna, but Lily, she was just a kid. She didn't ask for any of this. "Does she know who I am?" I asked, my voice quieter now, the anger starting to dissipate. Anna shook her head. "No. I never told her. I didn't know if you'd want to be a part of her life, so I didn't want to confuse her." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "And what does she know about Brandon?" "She knows he's her father," Anna said softly. "But she doesn't understand why he's not around. I've tried to explain it, but how do you tell a 4-year-old that their dad might never wake up?" Silence fell between us. I wanted to hate her, to hate everything about this situation, but hearing her talk about Lily stirred something inside me, a responsibility I couldn't ignore. "She deserves to know her family," Anna continued. "And right now, you're the only one who can give her that." I stared at the ground, my mind racing. This wasn't how I expected my life to go. 5 years ago, I had lost everything: my fiancé, my brother, my family. I had walked away to save myself from the pain. But now there was a child involved. A child who had no idea about the mess her parents had made. "What do you want me to do, Anna?" I asked, looking up at her. "How do I even start?" She bit her lip, hesitant. "Maybe, just meet her. See if you feel anything. If you can't do it, I understand. But I know you, Jeremy. You have a good heart, even after everything that happened." I leaned back, sighing deeply. The last thing I wanted was to be drawn back into the chaos of my past, but I also couldn't shake the image of a little girl, my niece, growing up without a father, without stability. "All right," I said finally, my voice barely audible. "I'll meet her." Anna's face lit up with a mixture of surprise and relief. "Thank you, Jeremy. I can't tell you how much this means." I nodded, feeling like I had just taken the first step into something I wasn't sure I could handle. The walls I had built around myself were starting to crack, and I wasn't sure if that was a good thing or not. But for now, I'd meet Lily. And maybe, just maybe, I'd find a way to put the pieces of my life back together. The knock on the door felt like a drum beat in my chest. I stood in my apartment, my hands sweating, staring at the doorknob as if it held the answers to all the questions swirling in my head. Today was the day. I was finally going to meet Lily. Anna had texted me earlier that morning, telling me they were on their way. I had barely slept the night before, my mind racing with a strange mix of anxiety and anticipation. Would she look like Brandon? Would she ask about him? What would she think of me? When I finally opened the door, my heart jumped into my throat. There she was, Lily. She was small, standing next to Anna, holding a stuffed bunny in one hand and looking up at me with wide, curious eyes. Her brown hair fell in loose curls around her face, and there was something in her expression that immediately reminded me of Brandon, though I didn't want to admit it. "Hi," Anna said softly, standing awkwardly on my doorstep. I nodded, barely hearing her as my gaze shifted to the little girl at her side. "Hey. This is Lily," Anna introduced, smiling nervously. "Lily, this is your Uncle Jeremy." Lily blinked up at me, her big, brown eyes studying me with the kind of innocent curiosity only a child could have. She hugged her bunny tighter, but didn't speak. I crouched down, trying to seem less intimidating, though the tightness in my chest remained. "Hey, Lily," I said gently, unsure of what else to say. "It's nice to meet you." She still didn't respond, but she didn't look scared either, just shy. I couldn't blame her. I was a complete stranger to her. Anna knelt down beside her, whispering softly. "It's okay, sweetie. Uncle Jeremy's a nice man. You don't have to be afraid." Lily peeked at me from behind her bunny and finally mumbled, "Hi." It was just one word, but something about hearing her voice, soft and hesitant, cracked something open inside me. She wasn't just some abstract idea, a child I had never met. She was real. She was standing right in front of me, and she was my family. My niece. Do you like bunnies? I asked, pointing to the stuffed animal she clutched so tightly. Lily nodded, still not saying much, but I could see the faintest hint of a smile forming. I used to have a bunny when I was little, I said, trying to make conversation. His name was Hopper. Her eyes lit up a little. Hopper? Yeah, I chuckled. Because he liked to hop around everywhere. Lily's grip on her bunny loosened, and for the first time, she stepped a little closer to me. This is Mr. Fluffy, she whispered, holding the toy up for me to see. I smiled at her. Mr. Fluffy, huh? He looks like a good bunny. Lily nodded, her small smile growing just a bit more. I could feel the tension easing as we slowly began to connect, even in the smallest way. Anna looked on, her expression a mix of hope and relief. She hadn't said much since they arrived, and for that, I was grateful. This moment needed to be between me and Lily. As much as my past with Anna still lingered, this wasn't about us. It was about the little girl standing in front of me, clutching her bunny and trying to navigate a world that had already given her more loss than any child should have to bear. Would you like to come inside? I asked, standing up and stepping aside to let them in. Anna nodded, and Lily followed her into my apartment, her eyes wandering around curiously as if she was trying to take it all in. I had cleaned up as best as I could, but it wasn't exactly a kid-friendly space. A part of me wondered what my life would look like if I actually took this on, if I really became a part of Lily's life. I wasn't a father. I didn't know the first thing about taking care of a child, especially one as fragile as she seemed. Do you want to play, Lily? Anna asked, her voice soft, as she knelt next to her. Uncle Jeremy has some games we could try. Lily looked at me, uncertain. What games? I hadn't planned for this, but I had scrambled together a few things last night, not wanting to be caught unprepared. I walked over to the small coffee table, where I had set out a few board games. I've got some puzzles, or we could draw if you like that better. Lily's eyes lit up at the mention of drawing. Can we draw? Of course, I said, relieved that she was warming up a little. I pulled out some paper and colored pencils, and we sat down on the living room floor together. Lily picked up a purple pencil and immediately started sketching, her little fingers working quickly across the paper. Anna sat beside her, quietly watching. As I sat there, coloring beside Lily, I realized how surreal this moment felt. Just days ago, I was living my life in isolation, completely cut off from my family. And now, here I was, sitting on the floor with a little girl I barely knew, trying to piece together what the future could look like. What are you drawing? I asked, glancing at her paper. Lily held up her picture proudly. It's a castle. Wow, I said, genuinely impressed. That's a great castle. I bet it's where Mr. Fluffy lives, right? She giggled, nodding. Yeah. He's the king of the castle. Her laughter was like a tiny ray of sunshine breaking through the clouds. For the first time in a long time, I felt something other than anger and resentment. I felt hope. It was a small feeling, fragile and tentative, but it was there, warming the cold spaces that had occupied my heart for so long. As the hours passed, Lily continued to draw, her comfort around me growing with each passing minute. Anna watched quietly from the couch, occasionally chiming in with a gentle suggestion or encouraging word, but for the most part, she let Lily and I have our time. When Lily finally began to tire, her eyelids drooping, Anna stood and gently took her hand. I think it's time we get going, sweetie. Lily looked up at me, her expression sleepy but content. Will I see you again? She asked, her voice small but hopeful. I felt a lump in my throat as I nodded. Yeah, Lily. You'll see me again. Anna smiled softly at me, a silent thank you in her eyes. As they left, I stood by the door, watching them walk away. Lily glanced back and waved, and I waved back, feeling a strange sense of peace wash over me. I closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling deeply. The storm inside me hadn't completely passed, but for the first time in years, I felt like there was a path forward. Maybe I couldn't fix everything that had been broken between me and my family. Maybe I couldn't erase the betrayal or the pain. But with Lily, there was a chance to build something new. She wasn't the reason for my past, but maybe, just maybe, she could be the reason for my future.